Lord Derby addressed such a meeting and said, "When the history of the war is written, I wonder to whom the greatest credit will be given. To the men who went to fight, or to the women who are working in a way that many people hardly believed that it was possible for them to work." Lord Sydenham added his tribute. Said he, "It might fairly be claimed that women have helped to save thousands of lives and to change the entire aspect of the war." Wherever intelligence, care, and close attention have been needed, women have distinguished themselves. A writer in the London Times of July 18, 1916, said, "But, for women, the armies could not have held the field for a month. The national call to arms could not have been made or sustained. The country would have perished of inanition and disorganization." If, indeed, it be true that the people have been won, it is because the genius of women has been lavishly applied to the task of reinforcing and complementing the genius of men. The qualities of steady industry, adaptability, good judgment and concentration of mind, which men do not readily associate with women, have been conspicuous features. On fields of battle, in regular and improvised hospitals, women have given tender and skilled care. To the wounded, and are credited with the restoration of life to many. Heroism and self-sacrifice have been frankly acknowledged by all the governments. But their endurance, their skill, the practicality of their service, seem for the first time to have been recognized by governments as war power. So, thinking in war terms, great men have suddenly discovered that women are war assets. Indeed, Europe is realizing, as it never did before, that women are holding together the civilization for which men are fighting. A great searchlight has been thrown upon the business of nation building. And it has been demonstrated in every European land that it is a partnership with equal, but different responsibilities resting upon the two partners. It is not, however, in direct war work alone that the latent possibilities of women have been made manifest. In all the belligerent lands, women have found their way to high posts of administration where no women would have been trusted 2 years ago, and the testimony is overwhelming that they have filled their posts with entire satisfaction to the authorities. They have dared to stand in pulpits, once too sacred to be touched by the unholy feet of a woman, and there without protest, have appealed to the Father of all in behalf of their stricken lands. They have come out of the kitchen where there was too little to cook. And have found a way to live by driving cabs, motors, and streetcars. Many a woman has turned her hungry children over to a neighbor and has gone forth to find food. For both mothers and both families of children, and has found it in strange places and occupations. Many a drawing room has been closed and the maid who swept and dusted it is now cleaning streets that the health of the city may be conserved. Many a woman who never before slept in a bed of her own making or ate food not prepared by paid labor, is now sole mistress of parlor and kitchen. In all the warring countries, women are postmen, sick, porters, railway conductors, ticket, switch and signal men. Conspicuous advertisements invite women to attend agricultural, milking and motor car schools. They are employed as police in Great Britain and women. Detectives have recently been taken on the government staff. In Berlin, there are over 3,000 women streetcar conductors and 3,500 women are employed on the general railways. In every city and country. Women are doing work for which they would have been considered incompetent 2 years ago. The war will soon end and the armies will return to their native lands. To many a family, the men will never come back. The husband who returns to many a wife, will eat no bread the rest of his life save of her earning. What then, will happen after the war? Will the widows left with families to support cheerfully leave their well-paid posts for those? Commanding lower wages? Not without protest. Will the wives who now must support crippled husbands? Give up their skilled work and take up the occupations which were open to them before the war? Will they resignedly say, the woman who has a healthy husband who can earn for her? Has a right to tea and raisin cake, but the woman who earns for herself and a husband who has given his all to his country, must be content with butterless bread. Not without protest. On the contrary, the economic axiom, denied and evaded for centuries, will be blazoned on every factory. Counting house and shop, equal pay for equal work. And common justice will slowly, but surely enforce that law. The European woman has risen. She may not realize it yet. But the woman doormat in every land has unconsciously become a doorjam. She will have become accustomed to her new dignity by the time the men come home. She will wonder how she ever could have been content lying across the threshold now that she discovers the upright jam gives so much broader and more normal a vision of things. The men returning may find the new order a bit queer, but everything else will be strangely unfamiliar too. And they will soon grow accustomed to all the changes together. The jam will never descend into a doormat again. The male and female anti-suffragists of all lands will puff and blow at the economic change which will come to the women of Europe. They will declare it to be contrary to nature and to God's plan, and that somebody ought to do something about it. Suffragists will accept the change as the inevitable outcome of an unprecedented world's cataclysm over which no human agency had any control, and will trust in God to adjust the altered circumstances to the eternal evolution of human society. They will remember that in the long run, all things work together for good, for progress and for human will. The economic change is bound to bring political liberty. From every land, there comes the expressed belief that the war will be followed by a mighty Oncoming wave of democracy, for it is now well known that the conflict has been one of governments. Of kings and czars, kaisers, and emperors. Not of peoples. The nations involved have nearly all declared that they are fighting to make an end of wars. New and higher ideals of governments and of the rights of the people under them. Have grown enormously during the past 2 years. Another tide of political liberty, similar to that of 1848, but of 1,000-fold greater momentum. Is rising from battlefield and hospital, from camp and munitions factory. From home and church, which, great men of many lands, tell us, is destined to sweep over the world. On the continent, the women say. It is certain that the vote will come to men and women after the war, perhaps not immediately but soon. In Great Britain, which was the storm center of the suffrage movement for some years before the war, hundreds of bitter, active opponents have confessed their conversion on account of the war services of women. Already, 3 great provinces of Canada, Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan sick. Have given universal suffrage to their women in sheer generous appreciation of their war work. Even Mr. Asquith. World-renowned for his immovable opposition to the parliamentary suffrage for British women, has given evidence of a change of view. Some months ago, he announced his amazement at the utterly unexpected skill. Strength and resource developed by the women and his gratitude for their loyalty and devotion. Later, in reply to Mrs. Henry Fawcett, who asked if woman suffrage would be included in a proposed election bill. He said that when the war should end, such a measure would be considered without prejudice carried over. From events prior to the war. A public statement issued by Mr. Asquith in August. Was couched in such terms as to be interpreted by many as a pledge to include women in the next election bill. In Great Britain, a sordid appeal which may prove the last straw to break the opposition to woman suffrage. Has been added to the enthusiastic appreciation of woman's patriotism and practical service and to the sudden comprehension that motherhood is a national asset which must be protected at any price. A new voters list is contemplated. A parliamentary election should be held in September, but the voters are scattered far and wide. The whole nation is agitated over the questions involved in making a new register. At the same time, there is a constant anxiety over war funds. As is prudent in a nation spending $50 million per day. It has been proposed that a large poll tax be assessed upon the voters of the new lists. Whereupon a secondary proposal of great force has been offered, and that is that twice as much money would find its way into the public coffers were women added to the voters list. What nation? With compliments fresh spoken concerning women's patriotism and efficiency, could resist such an appeal? So it happens that above the roar of cannon, the scream of shrapnel and the whir of aeroplanes, one who listens may hear the cracking of the fetters which have long bound the European woman to outworn conventions. It has been a frightful price to pay, but the fact remains that a womanhood well started on the way to final emancipation, is destined to step forth from the war. It will be a bewildered, troubled and grief-stricken womanhood with knotty problems of life to solve. But it will be freer to deal with them than women have ever been before.